In the beginning of time, before any civilization took its first breath, before man learned to speak, fight, or build, there were beings who walked between heaven and earth, beings of fire, majesty, and mystery. Among them, one name echoed like forbidden thunder through the ages: Azazel, the angel whose rebellion shaped not only the destiny of heaven, but that of all humanity. A being who carried divine light, until he dared to shine it too brightly. Today, you will learn the hidden truth about the angel who defied heaven, taught secrets to mankind, and forever changed the course of human history for good and for evil. Could a single angel, just one, have been able to alter the course of humanity? Could his choices have influenced wars, religions, cultures, and even the darkest mysteries of the occult? Today you will understand who it was. Azazel, the fallen angel who dared to teach humans what even the heavens were not ready to reveal. Get ready. After this video, you will never see history or the supernatural the same way again. Before we delve into this epic and hidden tale, click here up, activate the notification bell, and leave the like so that more people can discover the truth hidden for millennia. This helps us bring even deeper and more revealing content. Now, take a deep breath. Because today's story isn't just to be seen, it's to be felt. In the beginning, when all was still silent and darkness rested upon the void, the Creator gave rise to the first celestial creatures. They were living flames, pure consciousnesses, entities that vibrated in perfect harmony with the divine order. Among them, the following stood out: vigilantes, angels assigned to observe the newly formed world and ensure that the celestial plan proceeded without deviation. Azazel was one of them. His name, which would later be pronounced with fear and reverence, was then a symbol of strength, wisdom, and leadership. He watched over the emergence of the first mountains, the first forests, and the first creatures. And above all, he watched over humankind, fragile, curious, imperfect, but with a unique brilliance that no angel had ever possessed: the potential to create. While the heavens admired humanity from afar, Azazel drew closer. He felt fascination for humankind, for its vulnerability, and at the same time for its infinite capacity to learn. For many angels, humankind was just another creation. For Azazel, it was a living promise. But this closeness awakened something that no angel had dared to experience before: deep compassion, a desire to help, and perhaps pride. Azazel saw man hunting with his bare hands, defending himself with stones and wood, suffering from the cold, the darkness, and fear. And within him arose the question that would change everything: why deny them knowledge? The heavens had a rule. Certain secrets were sacred, too dangerous for mortal minds. But Azazel believed that evolution should not be forbidden, it should be guided. And that's where the fall began. Not a physical fall, but an ideological, emotional, and spiritual one. Because, while the watchers observed, Azazel taught. And that is how men learned to shape metals, to manufacture weapons, to create armor, to transform raw ore into powerful tools. It was Azazel who showed them how to work iron and bronze, how to build objects that could change the balance of nature. He taught women the art of beauty, adornments, colors, cosmetics, something that seemed harmless, but which, according to ancient accounts, aroused vanity, competition, and conflict. Knowledge began to spread like wildfire. And like all fire, it illuminated, but it also burned. The world has changed. But in the heavens, chaos began to grow. The watchers were torn between loyalty and outrage. Some followed Azazel and descended to earth, fascinated by humanity. Others remained steadfast to the Creator. And an invisible crack opened between heaven and earth, a crack that would never close again. And then came the decisive moment. The men, now armed and strengthened by forbidden knowledge, began to wage war against each other. Tribes rose against tribes, cities against cities, and blood flooded the newly born soil. To the heavens, the guilt was clear. Azazel had violated the divine order and corrupted humanity with too much power, too soon. For Azazel, the truth was different. He believed that men were simply discovering who they really were. But the Creator did not see it that way. The story then moves to a critical point: the rebellion of the angels who walked among men. The Watchers became involved with human women, begetting giant offspring, the Nephilim, powerful, violent, and ambitious beings. The earth was out of control, and the blame, once again, is placed on a single name: Azazel. He became the symbol of celestial rebellion, the mentor of a humanity that should have remained pure. And then came the judgment. While many angels were punished, Azazel received a worse fate. He was bound and imprisoned in a deep abyss, a spiritual prison where he would remain until his final days. But their story doesn't end there, because, even imprisoned, his legacy continued to resonate. Their weapons continued to shape civilizations. Their knowledge continued to be passed down from generation to generation. And its influence became so great that it crossed borders, religions, cultures, and mythologies. Azazel became the angel who he not only fell, he transformed the world before he fell. And this is where the real question begins. Was Azazel a traitor? Or a visionary? A destroyer? Or a liberator? Because, depending on who tells the story, Azazel is either the great villain or humanity's first defender. The fall of Azazel was not merely a celestial event, it was a rupture in the very history of human consciousness. While his spiritual body was imprisoned in the depths, his influence spread like invisible roots through the evolution of humanity. It was as if every hammer that struck metal, every blade sharpened, every ornament used to seduce or intimidate carried a piece of knowledge that had been forbidden. Centuries have passed, and what began as an angelic intervention has become tradition, technique, culture. And that is why, to understand Azazel, it is not enough to see what he did, it is necessary to see what the world has become because of him. Humanity, once fragile, was now capable of building weapons, walled cities, symbols of power. But along with this strength came ambition. Wars, territorial disputes, bloody conquests, all fueled by the knowledge Azazel had left behind. And then the big question arises, is knowledge really the problem, or is it that humanity doesn't know how to use it? Perhaps this question, asked silently, resonated in the abyss where Azazel was imprisoned. Because, even imprisoned, he could witness the growth of humanity and its destruction. He could see empires rising and falling, strong leaders emerging and being corrupted by power, and creation, once pure, transforming into a stage for endless conflicts. But there was something more that the ancient texts suggest. Azazel, even in his prison, was not entirely disconnected from the world. His energy, his essence, his memory continued to radiate through the generations. It is as if his fall had left an indelible mark on the human heart, the thirst for forbidden knowledge, the fascination with mysteries, the desire to transcend limits. And this is where the video begins to delve into the deeper layers of the myth. Why, after all, did heaven fear knowledge so much? According to ancient books, teaching metallurgy to men wasn't just about weapons. It was about providing tools that allowed for autonomy, allowing man to shape the world with his own hands. And that, for some angels, was too dangerous. Because creative power, when unguided, can generate both progress and destruction. But Azazel saw things differently. He believed that free will was the essence of creation. That depriving man of knowledge was to imprison him in eternal ignorance. And that is why his rebellion was not merely an act of disobedience, it was an act of freedom. While other angels were driven by absolute obedience, Azazel was driven by compassion, curiosity, and something that many celestials considered dangerous: empathy. And so, when he began teaching humans, it wasn't out of malice. It was because he believed they deserved more than just survival. They deserved to evolve. But the problem is that evolution and corruption go hand in hand. And so the rumors began in the heavens that Azazel had been the first to realize that humans could become almost as powerful as the angels themselves, and that this could change the cosmic balance. Some angels believed he had been manipulated by humanity itself, seduced by their weakness. Others said he had a greater plan, that he wanted to create a race so strong that not even the Creator could destroy it. But none of this is confirmed. It's all interpretation, fear, distorted versions of a story told by the victors and never by the fallen themselves. And that is why studying Azazel is studying more than just a rebellious angel. It is studying human duality itself, the eternal battle between curiosity and prohibition, between light and shadow, between ascension and fall. Now, to delve even deeper, we need to look at the impact of Azazel's actions on the world that came after. Because, while the Bible and apocryphal texts portray him as a corrupter, other people saw him as an instructor. In certain Middle Eastern traditions, Azazel was associated with the desert, not as a place of perdition, but as a place of revelation. The desert is where man confronts himself, where there are no distractions, where truth is revealed in the hardness of the sand and the silence of the wind. Some scholars suggest that Azazel, as a mythical figure, represents knowledge that transforms, that purifies through conflict, that molds human character through the fire of experience. Others associate his name with the word fortress or rough mountain, implying that his presence was not one of destruction, but of challenge, a challenge to man to become stronger. And then a fascinating interpretation emerges. What if Azazel wasn't the cause of human corruption, but rather the catalyst for human growth? And this is the part of the myth that provokes the most controversy. Because, by teaching men to make weapons, perhaps he wasn't encouraging war, but rather giving them the ability to defend themselves against larger and stronger creatures. By teaching adornment and cosmetics, perhaps he was showing that beauty and personal expression are also part of life, and not just the harshness of survival. But of course, it all depends on who's telling the story. To the heavens, Azazel gave too much. To humans, he gave what heaven would never give them. And this difference in perspective is what makes his story so intense, so human, so universal. Because, at its core, Azazel represents what we all carry within us. The desire to push boundaries, to question, to learn more than we are allowed. While he remained imprisoned, his image on earth transformed. He was seen as a god by some, as a demon by others, as a protector by certain ancient tribes, and as a corrupter by the priests. The same being, infinite interpretations. And this raises another essential question. Why would an angel be so feared that it needs to be erased from history? Many apocryphal texts were banned, hidden, or destroyed over the centuries. Among them, the Book of Enoch, one of the main sources about Azazel, was forbidden for almost 2 millennia. This has generated theories. What was there that shouldn't be known? Why was the story of the Watcher so dangerous? Some scholars argue that the problem wasn't Azazel himself, but the message behind his story. The idea that knowledge doesn't belong only to those at the top. The idea that man can become something greater than what was originally planned. The idea that divine light can be shared with those who live in darkness. And if that's true, then Azazel's downfall wasn't about sin, it was about control. And here we begin to walk towards Sklimsh moment when history ceases to be a distant myth and begins to touch us directly. Because, in the end, Azazel didn't fall for destroying. He fell for teaching. And that changes everything. The abyss where Azazel was imprisoned echoed with silence, but not a dead silence. It was the silence that precedes the storm. The kind of silence that holds, within its depths, the memory of an entire world transformed by a single act of courage. or rebellion, depending on the perspective. While celestial chains held him captive, something was happening on the surface of the earth. Humanity continued to evolve. Even without Azazel's physical presence, the legacy of his teachings crossed generations like an eternal specter. Every fire lit, every weapon forged, every ornament that shaped culture and identity bore his mark. And perhaps for the first time, the heavens perceive that knowledge, once given, can never be erased. And it is precisely here that the story touches its deepest point. Azazel fell, but his fall elevated humanity. And this, for the angels who lived under absolute order, was something unthinkable. Because in the end, it wasn't disobedience that defined Azazel's downfall, it was the impact it caused. An impact so great that neither the flood, nor the destruction of ancient civilizations, nor the censure of the priests could erase his name. And then comes the most powerful moment of all, the moment we understand that Azazel didn't fall alone. He fell along with everything that represented human evolution. He fell so that the man could rise. He sacrificed himself, some would say, so that humanity could emerge from the shadows and walk towards the light of knowledge. And that is precisely why, even though he is called a fallen angel, a demon, a corrupter, his name has never disappeared. Because powerful symbols do not die, they are reborn in the minds of those who understand them. Now we come to the climax. Imagine Azazel in the abyss. Chains tighten around his wrists, his spiritual body is weakened, and the darkness surrounding him seems eternal. But deep within the prison, there is something that not even heaven could extinguish, his flame. The flame that carries the truth, the flame that carries knowledge, the flame that carries the memory that he fell not only for himself, but for us. And in this impenetrable darkness, something emerges that ancient texts suggest, but is rarely stated clearly. Azazel did not repent. He did not plead. He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not disavow what he did. Because, in his view, teaching humanity was not a mistake, it was his purpose. And when a being fulfills its purpose, even if it leads it to the abyss, it does not see its journey as a fall, but as destiny. And here is the most exciting part of the entire narrative. Azazel fell, but humanity rose. And this is so profound that it has spanned millennia. Entire civilizations have disappeared, but metallurgy continues. Kingdoms fell, but scientific knowledge grew. Cultures may have disappeared, but humanity's quest for freedom, expression, and power has never been extinguished. So we come to the conclusion, whether Azazel is a villain or a hero, his story teaches us something essential. All knowledge demands responsibility. All progress requires sacrifice, and every act that changes the world will be remembered, for good or for bad. And that is why, when we speak of Azazel, we are not only speaking of an angel who dared to defy heaven. We are speaking of the very essence of humanity. We are speaking of the danger and the beauty of wanting to know more. We are speaking of the flame that burns in every person who wishes to go beyond what they have been allowed. And now we come to a final message, the kind that leaves the viewer speechless, reflecting deeply. The story of Azazel is not a warning against knowledge. It's a call for you to understand the power you hold in your hands. It's a reminder that the world changes when someone dares to pursue what everyone else fears. And above all, it's an invitation to look at yourself and ask, what would I do if I had the opportunity to change the world, even knowing that I could be punished for it? That's the moral of the story. That is the legacy. This is the flame that Azazel left behind. And as long as there is someone seeking the forbiddance, someone fighting to evolve, someone questioning, someone creating, Azazel will never be completely imprisoned. Why an angel may fall, but an idea never falls. If you felt this story, if it awakened something within you, if it made you see the myth behind the myth, then don't let the fire go out. Like, share, and comment below what you think of Azazel. villain, hero, or visionary. And of course, watch the next video in our series about fallen angels. Because now that you've lit that flame, it's not going to go out anytime soon.